Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, two of the lead gun grabbers for the Democrat Socialist candidates for president are out of the race. Of course, that would be Bobby O, and then this week, Corey B.
Hate to see you go, Corey.
But that doesn't mean you still don't have gun grabbers in positions of authority throughout the country, like Ralph K.K. Northam in Virginia, not only devoting more budget funds to the DOC in Virginia in anticipation of locking up law-abiding gun owners who, well, otherwise have been law-abiding gun owners but may not be law-abiding gun owners under the new gun control laws passed by Northam and Virginia Democrats.
Now, was he wearing blackface yesterday when he made that announcement? I saw him flanked with, other legislators.
I think he prefers the hood.
The hood. Oh, yeah,
but
that's
I'm
right.
not
Sorry.
sure. Also, he issued a state of emergency in advance of a Second Amendment rally at the Capitol.
They're afraid that it's going to turn into a Charlottesville situation.
Right. Law-abiding gun owners who are legally have a right to carry. The governor suggested that he's nonetheless concerned about credible threats of potential violence and extremism. I love sort of the generic smear as the predicate to basically try and break up a rally. And also to treat gun owners as presumptively violent rather than as presumptively peaceful, which is what 99.9% of law-abiding gun owners are. Right. And of course you have states like Illinois, where even though we have right to carry now, thanks to the Supreme Court, you still can't go virtually anywhere outside of your car or your home and carry without running afoul of some gun-free zone if somebody wanted to make an issue of it. So what about that? And what about this? I tell you, with the posture of the Democrat Socialists against the backdrop of some awful events, but they've tried to politically capitalize on by taking away the guns of law-abiding, punishing the law-abiding for the acts of criminals. This could be a bigger issue than people think in swing states, in particular in November of 2020. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Nikki Goeser. She is the executive director of the Crime Prevention Research Center. And boy, does she have an awful story to tell. She's the author of the book Stalked and Defenseless: How Gun Control Helped My Stalker Murder My Husband in Front of Me. Wow. Nikki, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, Dan and Amy, thank you for having me on.
So you were in Tennessee 10 years ago, and tell us the story of what happened per the title of your book.
My husband, Ben, and I were newlyweds, and a man who was stalking me shot my husband 7 times, killing him in front of myself and 50 other witnesses in the middle of a busy restaurant. This restaurant was a gun-free zone, and I obeyed that law and left my permitted legal firearm that I normally carried for self-defense locked in my vehicle that night. My stalker did not have a carry permit and brought a gun in illegally into a gun-free zone. I'll probably wonder for the rest of my life if I could have prevented that. Of course, I'll never know because I was denied a chance. I was stalked and defenseless. I think that gun-free zones are very dangerous. You have to stop and ask yourself, who's most likely to follow the law? It's the good law-abiding people, the people that are fearful of the penalties of law, that obey those laws. Bad guys could care less. I think gun-free zones are actually magnets for people with evil intent because they know everyone there is helpless. No one can stop them.
Well, he could have chosen another place to confront you to, but he chose a restaurant that had a gun-free sticker outside of it. How long had he been stalking you?
You know, I did not actually realize that he was indeed stalking me until that very night. At the restaurant when I saw him. He had never been there before. My husband had already asked him to leave me alone. I had already deleted and blocked him from my social media. And when I saw him, I thought, okay, this guy is not just a dedicated karaoke customer. He doesn't have just a simple crush on me. This guy is stalking me. My husband and I were running a mobile karaoke business that night at the restaurant. And he was a karaoke customer that started sending me inappropriate messages over social media. He would come to karaoke nights. He started to just stand there and stare at me. He wasn't singing songs anymore once I deleted him and blocked him. And it came across my mind, is this guy stalking me? But it wasn't until that night when he came in, I realized, yep, he's stalking me. So I asked management to remove him. I told them, please help me. He's stalking me. Please get him out of here. And when they went to confront him to ask him to leave, he pulled out a .45 and shot my husband in the head, and Ben fell to the ground, and he stood over Ben and continued to fire 6 more rounds into him.
Wow. And
then did somebody take him down in the restaurant, or what happened after that?
Yeah, I later learned during the trial that a United States Marine that just happened to be in the crowd tackled that man, and a bunch of other guys jumped on top of him. They disarmed him and held him until the police came. I've been told that the police arrived within 3 minutes of the 911 call, but I can tell you that when it's happening to yourself or your loved one, it seems like an eternity.
And so he's sent to prison, but as I understand from an op-ed you've written, that you continue to be harassed by him as much as he can harass you.
Yeah. I tell people it's not really a criminal justice system. It's just a system. My stalker is getting out of prison in only 8 more years. Yeah. This happened in 2009, and he was sentenced to 23 years at 100% with no parole. Unfortunately, it was a bench trial. There was no jury, and the judge dropped it from first-degree premeditated murder to second. But when they say they get 100%, I've learned that's not true. They actually mislead victims on sentencing. He is able to earn early release good behavior credits while he's in prison, and he's been writing me twisted love letters from prison, I've recently learned. So I'm both terrified and furious about his release. I mean, I fear for my future. I carry a gun for a good reason.
Yeah, but if he's ever up for parole, you've got to give the parole board copies of those letters.
From what I understand, he has no parole. He was sentenced to 23 years at 100% with no parole.
Okay.
So when he serves his time, he's out.
And so, if we can, I mean, as devastating as your personal story is, I'm very sorry for that. Pull out now. I mean, you're also the executive director of the Crime Prevention Research Center, so you must have exposure to a lot of terrible stories about this. That and it sort of goes back to this at least one common characteristic, which is people who were in positions where they couldn't legally protect themselves were preyed upon by criminals, and now with the prospect of this man being released at some point, can prey again on you, even if you're able to protect, if you're able to protect yourself, in the future. So I just want you to sort of speak to how pervasive you think this is, and particularly with respect to women, because of course one of the arguments that's legitimately made is that a gun is a great equalizer between predators, who are mostly men, and victims, who are often women.
Right. Well, I can touch on the dangers of gun-free zones, especially for women. Look, these women should not be made defenseless. They're like 1 in 6 women have been stalked in their life, according to the CDC. So if a woman's made defenseless in a gun-free zone, I'll give you an example. If a woman works at a business that prohibits guns on the business property, so she can't have her legal handgun to protect herself inside the business, and she can't even have the gun locked inside of her vehicle in the parking lot, that woman is defenseless there, as well as when she stops by the grocery, the gas station, the bank, and even when she pulls into her own driveway. Look, a stalker who's bent on harming or killing a woman would likely choose those places to attack. I mean, where they know their victim is defenseless. My stalker murdered my husband Ben in a gun-free zone, where I was made helpless because I obeyed the law and left my gun inside of my vehicle that night. I just don't think that women should be made helpless. Millions of women are stalked and fearful for their life. They feel threatened.
And so much of this, I would argue, get your reaction, is education. I understand what the politicians are doing. They're craven power seekers. But those that unwittingly support, out of sort of emotional reasons, support the idea of, if we just ban these guns, or if we just prevent people from getting guns, whether they're law-abiding or otherwise, then will be safer because I'm afraid of guns, because I don't have a gun, because I have no exposure to guns, and so I just want them to be eliminated, even though that's not realistic.
I think evil people will find a way. Look, when the police searched my stalker's vehicle in the parking lot that night, they found 2 more guns, ammunition, a baseball bat, binoculars, gloves, rope, and a knife.
Jeez.
He came well prepared with lots of different tools to inflict harm.
And it sounds like to kidnap you. I mean, if I hate to say that, but it's I just this is. And how long did you say he was coming to the karaoke bar?
It was, I don't know, it was months. Just several months.
What do you think about these? One of the other proposals in terms of a policy is, and it's supposed to be, it's often couched. This is voluntary. We just want people to be good citizens and get guns off the streets. Voluntary. The gun buyback programs. This isn't confiscation. We're just going to offer to buy back, or maybe we'll force you to sell. In New Zealand, where they just implemented a gun buyback program, again, this was really still flying off the tragedy in Christchurch with the synagogue that was shot up. But in New Zealand, they just implemented this gun buyback program, which has resulted in 56,000 of more than 1 million guns that are in the general population being turned in. But in terms of the gun buyback, under the auspices of the gun buyback program, one of the incidents that occurred was police raiding the suburban home of a man and his wife and his 3 young children, looking for a magazine for a .22 lever-action rifle. And this was, again, under the heading of gun buyback program. He had referred the gentleman in question, family in question, who was a member of a gun club, had referred to his rifle that they sought a magazine for, in written testimony when he testified before the New Zealand legislature against the gun buyback law. And then they turned around and raided his house looking for a magazine for, basically a .22. And so you just wonder, again, that's New Zealand, but I don't know that the perspective is that much different in certain political quarters. And again, the sort of voluntary sounding gun buyback program, but then the real world implications once you confer that power to the state.
Right. Yeah, I think these gun buyback programs are ridiculous. I mean, look, so you're going to take a bunch of guns away from law-abiding people who own them legally. Is that really going to stop bad people? I mean, people with evil intent, they're going to get guns the same way that, you get illegal drugs. They'll get them on the street. They'll get illegal guns. I mean, look, do guns make it easier for bad people to do bad things? Sure. But you know what? Guns make it a lot easier for good people to defend themselves.
As we saw with Jack Wilson in White Settlement, Texas the other week. Absolutely. She is Nikki Goeser, Executive Director of the Crime Prevention Research Center, author of the book Stalked and Defenseless, How Gun Control Helped My Stalker Murder My Husband in Front of Me. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Balance of nature. Changing the world, one life at a time.
I haven't heard any negative feedback from any of my patients who have been taking the product.